Hey, restaurant pros, do the words recipe costing cards just give you the hives? You know you need them, but maybe you're not 100% sure what the steps are to follow for costing out ingredients and for the costing out of the recipe cards. Well, in your comments here on my YouTube channel, you've been asking me to take a deeper dive for a while now, and that's what I'm going to do. Stay tuned. I'm David Scott Peters, restaurant expert, coach, and creator of the Restaurant Prosperity Formula, and I've been coaching restaurant owners since 2003, and I'm really glad you're here to learn. Let's dive right into the steps to follow for recipe costing cards and the ingredients that go into them. Before I do that, if you like tips and tricks like this, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and oh yeah, that bell so you're notified when my next video tip comes out. And for more tips and tricks running a profitable restaurant or to hear restaurant owner success stories, make sure you tune into my podcast, Restaurant Prosperity Formula, found on all the popular podcasting services. So let's get started. We're going to talk about recipe costing cards. Now, while this is not going to be an hour-long deep dive, I am going to show you the step-by-step process and what you need to know in order to put you on the right journey for doing your recipe costing cards, knowing what your ingredients are costing you so you can use them in recipe costing cards. So here we go. What I've brought up on my screen here is a spreadsheet template for a recipe costing card. Now you're going to notice on here, we've got the employee name, we've got the item name, we've got the date that it's for. But what we're going to do is you're going to notice this is called a batch recipe card. Now, what is a batch recipe? A batch recipe is any soup, side dish, dessert, dressing, component to a dish that you manufacture. You buy product from different vendors, you put it in a pot, and you make something else with it. You are now a manufacturer of goods. See, you've got to know what each ounce of those items cost you. So how do we do this? The first thing, step one, is you grab your menu, open it up, and go down each item and write down, create a checklist of all the components, soups, side dishes, sauces, dressings, anything you make for that dish, write down. So it could be for chicken wings, it could be, hey, I buy chicken by the pound, but I use it by the each. That's a batch recipe, converting it from a pound to an each. I have celery and I've got carrots that I cut myself. I prep them. Those are 2 more batch recipes. I've got 5 different sauces that I make. A combination of base ingredients, but from mild to hot to extremely hot. Well, that's 5 more batch recipes. I make my own ranch dressing. That's a batch recipe. So you're going to list this all out. Go one dish at a time and write down. Now, if it's a duplicate item, right? The carrots are being used somewhere else in a salad in the same cut format. Well, I don't need to duplicate that. So you're just creating each ingredient, component, item that you manufacture, creating the checklist. Now you're going to go back in your kitchen and you're going to document them. Well, you may have a recipe book, you may have ideas on the way things should be prepped, but I don't care about them right now. I want you to redocument. If it means you walk back in the kitchen and say, hey, prep this item, stop, weigh it, and then you write it down, then that's what you need to do as the leader of your business. Make sure it's accurate. Now, I'm going to tell you, it should take you 1 week to document all of your batch recipes. This is not a major thing to get done. Why? Because you make every item every single week. They're dated products. They're fresh. If you do not make them on a weekly basis, your food sucks and you're probably going to kill someone, right? Now, give yourself some leeway. Shit happens, so maybe it takes you 2 weeks, but you should be able to document these batch recipes in 1 week, 2 at best. Once you document them, now we're going to add the cost to them. What you'll notice in column D here, we have the ingredients. It's like a shopping list. So this is my melted cheese dip. We've got whole milk, Casa white cheese, jalapeno vinegar, and so on. Well, in column A is the cost of how you buy it, by the case, by the gallon, by the each. Next to it in column B are quantities. How many ounces or by weight or by fluid ounce are in that unit that you just bought, the case, the way it comes in. Well, now we've got the description of the quantity that we know it's a fluid ounce or it's a ounce by weight and so on. That way we can use it in our recipe. Well, in column E, we now have the cost. Now that cost is the quantity, which is what? Quantity, column B, times the cost, which is the number of ounces, if you will, divided into the price, which gives us the unit cost in column F. So I'm going to have 32 fluid ounces of whole milk times 3 cents a fluid ounce of what my cost is. And that means I'm going to have 96 cents of milk in column G. This is not difficult. It gets a little more difficult when we get to the item recipe. Why? Because we'll have yield tests for that. But in here, it does not matter if I have onions and I chop off the top and the skin and I throw it away, because I paid for the whole onion and it got thrown into the pot, if you will. So ultimately, we throw all these ingredients together, we total it, and in this case, it's $33.52. Almost 53 cents is what I put in the pot. Whether I threw things away does not matter. That's what I started with. And as it melted down and became this wonderful cheesy goodness, I finish with 205 fluid ounces. You'll notice that is cell E23. And I store that. That's an 8-quart camware square. Well, I know, by the way, the extra part about doing these batch recipes, if I inventory it and I see an 8-quart camware and it's got, well, melted cheese dip in it, I know a full one is $33.52 when I take inventory. If it's half full, I can do it by 0.5. I don't have to measure the fluid ounces. So that speeds up our inventory. Oh, well, then I store it on the line in 2-quart camwares. And all of a sudden, if I see those, I can do the same thing. But for this, we're breaking it down to how many fluid ounces, 205, divided into the 33.52, says that the per fluid ounce is 16 cents a fluid ounce. Now you'll notice I break it out to 5 decimals because the more we bring it down into the 5 decimals, the more accurate the recipe costing card will be. And often software is going to do this well for you as well. You may not see the decimals, but it's there. So this is really 0.16355 cents per fluid ounce. So if I were to use this in, say, a nacho, and I put 4 fluid ounces in, I know it's 4 times the 16 cents. So as you can see, anything you manufacture, just like you buy it from Cisco, US Foods, Benny Keith, GFS, does not matter who you buy it from. You're a manufacturer just like them, meaning the product that they're delivering, right? So you've got to do all your batch recipes first in order to start on your item recipes. Next, we go to our item recipes. These are items that you sell, right? Not that we just produce, we produce and sell. So in this case, a Caesar salad. Now I want you to look at something here. We've got our ingredients, just like we did the batch recipe, romaine lettuce, croutons, which is a batch recipe in this case. The romaine lettuce could be a batch recipe where I buy a case of romaine lettuce and I prep it and chop it down and have a 50% yield. We'll talk about that in a second. But in this case, I buy it in a bag and I dump it. It's already prepped and cleaned. But my croutons are my leftover bread, right? That I'm reusing to be able to sell it. My Parmesan cheese comes out of a bag that I just scoop and use. My Caesar dressing is a batch recipe. I make my own fresh. It doesn't come out of a gallon jug. I make sure I make it from scratch, which means that's a batch recipe. Do you see how we can't do recipe costing cards if we didn't do our batch recipes first? And finally, we have something called a consumable factor, and I'm going to talk about that in great detail in a moment. Now, ultimately, this recipe card looks exactly the same as our batch recipe with one new change. What is that? That is column D. There's now a new column D called yield. You've got to do a yield test. What is a yield test? It is how much usable product you have. Let's take, for instance, that romaine lettuce. Well, if I'm prepping that romaine lettuce myself, and quite honestly, in this example, I should probably have the word batch recipe because it is a batch recipe. So I made an error in here, but you now know it because you're listening to me. And that is this. I take my head of romaine lettuce out of the case. I chop off the top. It's brown. It's gross. I'm not going to serve it to somebody. Chop off the bottom. That's a core only a goat would eat. And all of a sudden I look at it and say, I paid for 100% of this head of romaine lettuce, but I'm only utilizing 80%. I'm throwing away the top and bottom. So you've got to put a yield test in here to find out how much usable product you have. What does that mean? That means that I paid $21.25 for the case of romaine lettuce, which ultimately was 264 ounces. but only 80% of it was usable. So I paid for this extra, threw it away, which means whatever I'm going to actually put in a dish to use as a salad is worth more per ounce. So in this case, we know that when I do this yield test, that I'm paying for the full case, but I'm not using it all. And our unit cost will go up. In this case, 80% of it's usable. So now I can know what the usable ounce should be. 20% is gone. It's worth more. So as we go down, we do the same process. There's a couple changes this, and I'm going to show you, but let's go back to the yield test real fast before I go further. And I'm going to switch to this other tab on yield tests, and you're going to see different examples I've given you. I've got the lay flat bacon. Well, if I use that bacon and I chop it up after it's been cooked, well, I take my ending weight divided by my beginning weight. That's what I would have done with the romaine lettuce. So I started with a 20-pound case, 2 10-pound slabs, if you will. I cook it all down and then I chop it up. Well, I may have a 35% yield. That's 65% of that weight just gets shrunk out, right? Gone. But I paid for all of it. So what's left over, the 35%, is worth the $69 that I paid for that case. So raw, if I did that, I said, okay, I used 100% of the product, it'd be 21 cents an ounce. But because I cooked it down and then I chopped it up and those ounces shrunk incredibly, it means that my chopped bacon is worth 61, almost 62 cents a usable ounce. Can you see why yield tests are incredibly important? But look at the slice. If I use bacon by the slice, it doesn't matter that it shrinks 35%. A slice is a slice. So now I'm going to count how many slices I get to my 20-pound. And in this case, 230. That means 230 divided by into my $69. It's 30 cents a slice. See how important understanding your yields. We'll do one more thing. We'll look at chicken wings where we can take batch recipes, the first thing we talked about, and convert pounds to eaches. Well, look at this. I've got a case of chicken wings, 4 10-pound bags, but they're a 710 count. Well, I'm going to count 4 cases, 190, 205, 195, 210. Well, I add it up, divide it by 4, and I find my average count is 200 wings per case. Well, I'll divide the 800 into the $88 I spend for, paid for it, and it's 44 cents a wing. See, now I can use that in my item recipe. So batch recipes, yield tests are critically important. So if I go back to this item recipe, you're going to see we've got all this all there. We've got the number of ounces or eaches we're going to use, and we've got the cost. But we have one more thing I want to talk about, which is row 11, which is a consumable factor. What is a consumable factor? It's product you give away for free. So if you've been on my YouTube channel and you learn that food cost is beginning inventory plus purchases minus N gives me use, the use is what leaves the shelves. We're going to take that same inventory for products we give away for free. For instance, salt, pepper, mayo, ketchup, mustard. Maybe it's chips and salsa, bread and butter on the table, things I'm not charging for. But I'm going to make sure I charge for them. The guest isn't getting nickeled and dimed. They're built into my item recipes. So in this case, I take an inventory of all the items I give away for free, whatever the items are, and I add into it all the prep or purchase of those items I give away for free. That says, in this case, I started with $756 in product, $1,500 was prepped or purchased. Add them together, $2,257 in product, usable product that I'm going to give away for free. That's what I could use during this period. Let's call it a week. Then at the end of the week, I take an inventory, an ending inventory. It's $844. Subtract it from the $2,257. Says that $1,412 is gone. I gave it away. Well, now I go to that expensive cash register, run a PLU report, velocity report, item by item sales mix report. How many entrees did I sell during that week? In this case, there were 5,542 sold. Entrees alone. Well, if I look at it that way, I take that and divide it into the $1,400 and I come up with 25, almost 26 cents. Now, I do this on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and I alter that product. It is now a product, an ingredient that goes into every one of my item recipes. As I go back to this Caesar salad, row 11, the consumable factor is 25 cents. So now I'm making sure I'm charging my guest without charging my guest. I make sure that I'm not giving away product, falsely inflating my food costs because I'm using product, not getting money for it. Now the twist here as we get to the bottom, our cost, in this case, when I add up column I, and I've got all these ingredients, it's $1.78. Well, if my target food cost in this restaurant was 22%, the math would tell me that I would have to charge $8.12. But I feel like I can't do that. So I'm charging $7.99. Don't know why, doesn't sound good. Well, this is without the protein, but $7.99. Well, use divided by sales, $1.78 divided into $7.99 says this will produce a 22.35% food cost. And more importantly, if I take the costs and subtract it from the sale price, it's going to make me $6.20 before labor. Like, you want to know the step-by-step process to creating your recipe cards? To be able to know what to charge and how to menu engineer and be successful and ultimately get to ideal versus actual product usage, these are the steps. There are a few other things to know. Make sure you stick around my YouTube channel and learn those tips, or contact me. Figure out if maybe you want to become a part of my coaching program where I'll teach you everything you need to know. But the truth of the matter is, I'm going to leave you with one piece. While I tell you the two most important systems any restaurant should have are budgets and recipe costing cards because they make you a proactive management team, recipe cards are incredibly important. They allow you to re-engineer your menu to adjust your prime cost in order to make up for the changes going on in our industry as labor goes up, as expenses go up. And you need this in your toolbox to be successful. With that said, I'm going to tell you right now, spreadsheets is not the way to go. This is the one piece that I'm going to tell you need software, because software will change your life if you use it on a day-to-day basis and maintain your current up-to-date recipe costing cards. Go out there, kick some ass, take action today, start on that journey. If you're tired of not being able to leave your restaurant because no one else knows how to run it, I want to make sure you know it doesn't have to be that way. You can leave your restaurant. It is possible to build a team of people who know how you want the restaurant to run with trained and responsible people in place. You can give yourself time away. What would you do if you had time away from your restaurant? Would you sleep better? Would your relationships improve? Would you feel more relaxed? These are all things you deserve to experience as a business owner. It's why we own our own businesses. If you would like to learn how to own a restaurant that doesn't depend on you to be successful, click the link in the description to watch a free video to learn exactly what you have to do. Also, be sure to subscribe to get my weekly tips and watch these two videos to get more information and guidance for running a successful restaurant.